The drama begins with a young lawyer named Moo-Hyeok arriving at his office, one of the top law firms in South Korea. As he begins his workday, Moo-Hyok's colleague, Jae-woo, is in a meeting with a client named Mr. Won. Mr. Won, a designer of a beloved character, feels wronged by a company that has violated their contract. He reveals to his legal team that the company's CEO had promised to pay him $500,000 in royalties for his design. However, the CEO now denies this promise, claiming that the contract did not specify an amount for royalties. Enraged by what he sees as deception, he urges Jae-woo to take action and solve the problem. At that time, Jae-woo was at a loss. The company's CEO had signed a legally binding contract with Mr. Won, but the text was so small and hidden in the fine print that he had no idea he was losing the rights to his design. But just as Jae-woo was about to give up, Moo-Hyeok and his assistant So-Hee arrived on the scene. Moo-Hyeok knew that the CEO had used underhanded tactics, but he also knew that he had another weapon in his arsenal, the power of public sentiment. With the rise of social media, people were more easily swayed by what they saw online. So, he launched a campaign on social media, highlighting the CEO's unfair practices and rallying public support for Mr. Won. The CEO was intimidated by the public backlash and, under pressure, agreed to a new contract. This time, Mr. Won was protected and even secured a royalty of 10% of all merchandise sales. Thanks to Moo-Hyeok's quick thinking and savvy use of social media, Mr. Won was able to win his case and keep the rights to his design. There, Jae-woo fuming because Moo-Hyeok had swooped in and taken over his client, and now he was determined to get revenge. He marched into their supervisor, Lee Do-jin's, office and began complaining about Moo-Hyeok. But to his surprise, Do-jin was not sympathetic to his plight. Instead, he praised Moo-Hyeok for his competence and suggested that he split 20% of his commission with Jae-woo. Feeling defeated, Jae-woo stormed out of the office. But as he was leaving, Do-jin called out to Moo-Hyeok, asking him to sit down. He had a new case for him that was both difficult and important. Then Moo-Hyeok prepared himself for a case involving a celebrity scandal or a billionaire divorce, but he was caught off guard when Do-jin told him it was an attempted murder case. So, their client was Cheonmyeong High School, one of the most prestigious institutions in South Korea. The school was worried that its reputation would be tarnished by the horrific incident involving its students, Han-soo and Soo-ah, and had hired the Song-ha law firm to handle the case. The public prosecutor was seeking a 10-year prison sentence for Han-soo, but Moo-Hyeok's mission was to reduce the sentence as much as possible because he was still a student and Soo-ah was still in a coma in the hospital. Meanwhile, at Cheonmyeong High School, the general manager assistant, Young-hae, was instructing the teachers to keep the case involving Han-soo and Soo-ah under wraps to protect the school's reputation. They were told not to discuss the case with anyone, even their families. Moo-Hyeok knew that this case would be a delicate balancing act between ensuring justice for Soo-ah and protecting the school's reputation. As the scene unfolds, we are introduced to a determined woman named Ha So-Hyun. She is seen distributing energy drinks to the police at the local station with a determined look. So-Hyun is a teacher at Cheonmyeong High School and is convinced that Han-soo is innocent of the crime he is accused of. The crime in question is the coma of Soo-ah, a student at the school. Despite the overwhelming evidence pointing to Han-soo, So-Hyun believes in his innocence and is determined to help him. She is the only person caring for him and willing to stand by him during this difficult time. However, her efforts are met with resistance as a police officer tells So-Hyun that her actions are futile and that the decision to name Han-soo as a suspect will not be changed. So-Hyun, who had been friendly and determined, suddenly becomes annoyed and takes back all the drinks she had been distributing. With a sullen expression, she leaves the police station. The next day, Moo-Hyeok takes on the case of the attempted murder of Soo-ah. He visits Han-soo in prison. He wants Han-soo to provide him with a detailed chronology of events to find leniency for Han-soo. However, Han-soo insists that he is innocent and that when he entered Soo-ah's house that night, he found her already injured. Han-soo also reveals that he and Soo-ah were in a romantic relationship and had no reason to harm her. But Moo-Hyeok explains that many instances of violence against women stem from romantic relationships, and the fact that he was dating Soo-ah would make him even more suspect in the eyes of the prosecutor. Moo-Hyeok warns him that he could face life imprisonment if he is convicted. As Han-soo proclaims his innocence, Moo-Hyeok becomes increasingly determined to uncover the truth. He enlists the help of So-Hee, a private investigator, to delve deeper into Han-soo's past. So-Hee is an orphan with a troubled past, having once received a suspended sentence for committing acts of violence at school. During his investigation, Moo-Hyeok meets with an old rival, Cha Eun-jong, a female prosecutor who handled Han-soo's previous case. They were classmates in law school and had different principles about law, which led to fierce competition between them. With Moo-Hyeok now a lawyer from a prominent law firm and Eun-jong a stubborn prosecutor who prioritizes justice above all, the competition between them only intensifies. He tries to persuade her to grant Han-soo leniency, but she is resolute in her belief that Han-soo should be charged with life imprisonment. She has information that Han Soo is obsessed with Soo-Ah and often stalks her. Moo-Hyeok, determined to clear Han Soo's name, sets out to prove his innocence, despite his boss's instructions to seek a reduced sentence. He receives a call from So-Hee, who informs him of a secret chat application used by the students of Chonmyeong High School. Knowing that this could be a vital source of information, he reaches out to an acquaintance, Won Suk, who has expertise in hacking, and together they manage to gain access to the chat application. When Moo-Hyeok scours through the chat logs, he stumbles upon a post that shows Soo-Ah was with another man just days before her attack. This discovery proves that Han Soo wasn't the only one who had recent contact with her, casting doubt on his guilt. On the day of the trial, Moo-Hyeok presented his findings to the court, revealing that Soo-Ah had been secretly dating older men for money. He presented evidence, including photographs and dashboard camera footage, that showed her near an adult man just days before her attack. Moo-Hyeok argued that it was not Han Soo but one of Soo-Ah's older lovers who had attempted to kill her. He called for a reinvestigation of the case and urged the police and prosecutor to consider the new evidence he had uncovered. However, Han Soo's reaction was not what Moo-Hyeok had expected. Instead of being grateful for his lawyer's efforts to clear his name, he flew into a rage and attacked Moo-Hyeok, accusing him of not knowing anything about Soo-Ah and calling her a prostitute. As the trial for Han Soo, the defendant, progressed, it became clear that he had lost control of himself. The judge, taking this into consideration, decided to postpone the trial. Yeon-jong, a colleague of Moo-Hyeok, suggested that he attempt to negotiate a reduced sentence for Han Soo as he had already confessed to his crime. After the trial, Moo-Hyeok visited Han Soo in prison and confronted him angrily. He expressed his frustration with Han Soo's actions, which had caused chaos in the trial, despite Moo-Hyeok's efforts to prove his innocence. However, Han Soo didn't take responsibility for his actions, and instead, he blamed Moo-Hyeok for involving Soo-Ah. He believed that Moo-Hyeok couldn't understand the suffering he had experienced as an orphan. Moo-Hyeok then revealed that he was also an orphan, having lost his parents in a hit-and-run accident, and understood that pain all too well. Moo-Hyeok made it clear that his experiences of injustice didn't make him believe that he had suffered more than anyone else. Despite his hardships, he was determined to change his life by becoming a lawyer to defend himself if something bad were to happen again. Listening to Moo-Hyeok's words, Han Soo felt guilty for speaking poorly to him earlier. He then offered to reveal everything if Moo-Hyeok would confirm Soo-Ah's current condition, as he was deeply worried about her. Moo-Hyeok promised to visit her the next day and update him on her condition in exchange for his full disclosure. However, shortly after his meeting with Han Soo, Moo-Hyeok was scolded by Do-jin in his office for revealing the alleged act of prostitution committed by Soo-Ah in court. He pushed for a plea bargain for Han Soo, arguing that their client only wanted a reduced sentence and not to prove his innocence. However, Moo-Hyeok was determined to investigate further and believed they could clear Han Soo of all charges. On the other hand, Do-jin appeared indifferent to his fate, as their true client was the Chonmyeong Foundation, who wanted the case to be resolved as quickly as possible. As the case progressed, Han Soo received a visit from someone threatening him with information about Soo-Ah. That night, he feigned a stomachache to trick the prison guards and was taken to the hospital. Once there, he took advantage of the guards being off guard and sneaked onto the roof. In a shocking turn of events, he attempted to end his life by jumping off the roof and ending up in a coma, just like Soo-Ah. Because of this, Moo-Hyeok's reputation was tarnished after footage of Han Soo attacking him in court went viral on social media, and the public blamed him for Han Soo's attempted to hurt himself. As a result, he was immediately fired from his law firm. Then the outraged Moo-Hyeok confronted Do-jin, who attempted to justify his actions by citing the law of public sentiment. Meanwhile, Yeon-jong tried to convince her superior, Song-bae, to allow her to reinvestigate the case involving Han Soo and Soo-Ah. But he refused, citing that both the victim and defendant were in comas, and blamed her for trying to seek a 20-year prison sentence instead of following the instructions given to her. However, Yeon-jong was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant risking her job as a prosecutor. She stated that she would look for other facts and file charges according to the crime committed by the perpetrator. As the sun set on the bustling city, Yeon-jong made her way to meet Moo-Hyeok at a local bar. He had called her earlier, inviting her to join him for a drink and to discuss the case they were working on together. When Yeon-jong arrived, she could immediately see that something was troubling Moo-Hyeok. He greeted her with a scowl, and as they sat down, he revealed that not only had he been fired, but all of the VIP clients he had been working on had been taken over by Do-jin, the head of Song-a law firm. He was convinced that Do-jin was trying to sabotage him after he had tried to prove Han Soo's innocent, and revealed that Soo-ah might be a prostitute. Yeon-jong listened patiently, but she knew that the evidence Moo-Hyeok had found was not enough to prove that Soo-ah was prostituting herself. She reminded him that the photos and videos from unreliable sources he had found were not enough to make such a claim. The police had decided to stop the investigation because Han Soo had already admitted his crime in court. Besides that, Hyun-jung also informed Moo-Hyeok that the townhouse occupied by Soo-Ah was not owned by anyone. She lived in a townhouse that still belonged to the construction company that built the apartment building. As Hyun-jung shared her suspicions about the case with Moo-Hyeok, she revealed that Lee Ki-hoon, the son of Do-jin, had attended Chonmyeong High School and submitted a testimony that Han-soo had stalked Soo-Ah. She said she couldn't shake the feeling that Moo-Hyeok's assignment to handle a case involving them, who was Ki-hoon's schoolmate, may not have been a coincidence. Just as they were deep in conversation, Hyun-jung's phone rang. She answered it, and her face turned ashen as she listened to the person on the other end of the line. When she hung up, she told Moo-Hyeok that Soo-Ah had died. With this news, Han-soo would now be named as the accused in Soo-Ah's murder, and he may be sentenced to life in prison. The next day, Moo-Hyeok and Hyun-jung attended Soo-Ah's funeral, where they were surrounded by mourners. As they were paying their respects to her, Moo-Hyeok overheard a conversation between four Chonmyeong High School students discussing Soo-Ah, using inappropriate language and making crude jokes. He was horrified and initially wanted to leave, but something compelled him to stay and observe the students secretly. As he listened to their conversation, Moo-Hyeok was shocked to discover that they had once bullied Soo-Ah, and one of them had even expressed a wish that she would rather die than continue to trouble them. As Moo-Hyeok observed the students, he noticed one of them was Lee Ki-hoon, Do-jin's son, who was involved in an argument with a girl named Na Yeri. Yeri seemed to harbor a deep hatred for Soo-Ah and admitted bullying her. As the group continued to argue, a girl named Han Tae-ra tried to intervene, but Ki-hoon and Yeri paid her no heed. Just as things seemed to escalate, a young man named Yoo Bom-jin stepped in, warning them firmly. They seemed frightened at the sound of his voice and immediately stopped their argument, following Bom-jin as he walked away from the cemetery. At that time, Moo-Hyeok couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story and that Ki-hoon, Yeri, and Bom-jin were connected to Soo-Ah's death. However, before he could investigate further, he received a phone call from So-hee, who informed him that a group from the prosecution had suddenly arrived at their office to conduct a search and seizure. He was shocked to learn that he was accused of accepting bribes, committing tax fraud, and committing other crimes. As he pieced together the events of the day, it became clear to him that he had been set up by Do-jin, who refused to help him and even demanded that he pay compensation for the losses he had caused. Do-jin cruelly informs Moo-Hyeok that he will be withdrawing all the resources belonging to the law firm he had relied on and belittles him by saying he is just a replaceable cog in the machine. To make matters worse, Moo-Hyeok also loses his lawyer's license, effectively ending his career in law. In a short time, his reputation as one of the best lawyers at Song-ha law firm is destroyed, and his career as a lawyer is ruined due to his defense of a high school student accused of murder. Despite this setback, Moo-Hyeok remains determined to solve the murder case of Soo-Ah. 2 months later, he gathered information about the 4 Chonmyeong High School students who had once bullied her. With the help of Won-suk, he secures a job as a teacher at Chonmyeong High School, using this as an opportunity to conduct a secret investigation into the school. The story shifts to a scene of a male student at Chonmyeong High School named Ahn Byung-ho being scolded by his employer for stealing expired food. Instead of providing edible food, his employer even threatens to cut Byung-ho's salary for stealing the food. Disheartened, he sets off to school on his bike. Along the way, he is intercepted by a group of students from another school looking to buy cigarettes. To his surprise, he reveals that he secretly steals several packs of cigarettes from the convenience store where he works and sells them at a low price to them. When Byung-ho leaves the students, So-Hyun, a teacher, spots him riding his bike and tries to call out to him, but he doesn't hear her. She then sees the students who had just bought cigarettes from Byung-ho and approaches them to warn them, as by law, high school students are prohibited from smoking. However, the students ignore her warning, and one of them even tries to attack her. So-Hyun, who is skilled in several martial arts techniques, swiftly takes the boy down. As Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun watch Jun-jae's illegal activities, they hatch a plan to stop him. Then Moo-Hyeok approaches him and pretends to be interested in pawning his watch. During their conversation, he subtly gathers evidence of Jun-jae's illegal practices and secretly records their conversation. Afterward, Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun confront Jun-jae with the evidence they have gathered. He explains that he will report Jun-jae's illegal activities to the authorities if he doesn't stop his predatory lending practices. Fearful of the consequences, Jun-jae agrees to stop his illegal activities and return the students' valuables. The next day, Jun-jae and his friend Jong-tae had a profitable hobby. They organized fights between students at Chonmyeong High School and placed bets on the outcomes. As they prepared for their next fight, he approached Ki-hoon to ask permission to use the school roof as the location for the bout. Ki-hoon, who had no interest in watching the fight, nonetheless agreed to let him use the roof on the condition that he keep the event quiet and avoid getting them into trouble. With Ki-hoon's blessing, Jun-jae turned to Byung-ho and ordered him to purchase several packs of cigarettes for the event, despite his obvious reluctance. On the other hand, Lee Tae-suk, the general manager of the Chonmyoung Foundation, was deeply impressed by So-Hyun's dedication to Han-soo, even as he faced charges in a murder case. Then she explained that it was her duty as a teacher to care for her students, particularly someone as vulnerable as Han-soo, an orphan without parents or guardians to support him. Touched by her concern and sincerity, Tae-suk offered her a new position as a guidance and counseling teacher to help students navigate the challenges they faced. Without hesitation, So-Hyun accepted the offer. She was determined to help her students avoid a tragic fate like Soo-ah, her former student who had died. That night, she and her colleagues celebrated the arrival of a new teacher, Moo-Hyeok, with a night of drinks at a tavern. However, Young-hae, another teacher, had ulterior motives and deliberately got So-Hyun and Ha So drunk to punish them if they were late for school the next day. Moo-Hyeok, who is aware of a mysterious situation, approaches Young-hae with a plan. He manages to get her drunk so they can leave the party early, making her believe that he wants to help her and Ha So. However, he has other intentions for the night. Instead of going home, he secretly returns to Chonmyoung High School to conduct an investigation. As he enters the unlocked photography club room, Moo-Hyeok discovers another room inside fitted with a digital lock. Using a special tool created by Won-suk, he can unlock the door and finds a collection of photos of Soo-ah taken by someone using a film camera. The fact that all the photos were taken secretly leads Moo-Hyeok to believe that the person taking the photos may be obsessed with her. Not only did he find photos of Soo-ah at school, but also a collection of photos of her outside of school with several grown men. After discovering the collection of photos, Moo-Hyeok is startled by the sound of something falling and exits the room to investigate. To his surprise, he finds a group of students having a party on the school roof. Meanwhile, Jun-jae is preparing to start a fight between students, turning it into a betting arena known as the Shuttle Monster Championship. This battle brings together students who are victims of bullying at school, also known as porters. The fight is broadcast live on the Chonmyoung High School Students app, and he even opened an online betting arena for students watching the fight through the app. Byung-ho, as a porter, is set to fight against a male student named Hyung-kyu, who is determined to beat Byung-ho to stop Jun-jae and his friends from bullying him. Soon after, the fight begins with Hyung-kyu launching multiple attacks, knocking Byung-ho several times while Byung-ho dodges all of his attacks. As the fight continues, Jun-jae becomes increasingly irritated by Byung-ho's lack of resistance and enters the battle arena to confront him. Moo-Hyeok, who has been watching the fight, decides not to intervene, as the students involved have nothing to do with his investigation. However, when Jun-jae mentions Han-soo and threatens to harm Byung-ho like Han-soo, Moo-Hyeok can no longer stay on the sidelines and decides to help him. To his surprise, Bom-jin appears behind Moo-Hyeok and warns him not to intervene in their affairs, as it would only put Byung-ho in more danger. Bom-jin suggests they can save Byung-ho without appearing in front of Jun-jae and his gang. Without hesitation, he rushes into the music club room and turns on loud rock music through the speakers to distract Jun-jae and his friends from Byung-ho. Shortly after, Jun-jae rushes to the club room in a panic. Someone had broken in, and he feared that valuables pawned by the students had been stolen. But upon arriving at the room, he finds that nothing is missing and the items are still safely hidden. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok tries to gather information from Bom-jin about Han-soo. He tells Bom-jin that he heard Jun-jae mention Han-soo's name when threatening Byung-ho. He also mentions that he found out about Soo-ah's murder case from the news, though the name of their school was disguised. Bom-jin, visibly upset, explains to Moo-Hyeok that the tragic incident has left deep wounds for the students. He tells Moo-Hyeok that the defendant and victim were their schoolmates and that they had spent a lot of time with them. He also reveals that some students have experienced trauma and have even decided to transfer to other schools, while others have tried to move on and forget about the tragic incident. After sharing all this, he says goodbye to Moo-Hyeok and heads home. Even though Bom-jin appears to be deeply affected by Soo-ah's death, Moo-Hyeok suspects that he is only pretending. This is because he is friends with Ki-hoon and Yeri, who didn't care about Soo-ah and once bullied her. When Bom-jin arrives home, he immediately meets his father, Yoo Young-gi, a prominent congressman, who is watching a debate on television featuring him as one of the participants. In the debate, Bom-jin manages to outmaneuver his opponent with his brilliant explanation of the law and receives appreciation from many people. But unexpectedly, Young-gi grabs his cell phone and orders someone to cancel the broadcast of the debate and delete all posts about it on social media. He explains that Bom-jin's perception of the law, as explained in the debate, could jeopardize his reputation as a congressman. Upon witnessing his father's actions, Bom-jin tries to provide an explanation but ultimately decides to apologize to Young-gi. Then he explains that everything Bom-jin says and does in public can influence public opinion about him and emphasizes the importance of Bom-jin maintaining a certain image to protect his reputation as a respected member of Congress. The next day, Moo-Hyeok arrives at school early to find a student wearing sneakers from a specific streetwear brand. He believes this student may have visited Han So before he attempted to take his own life. As he greets students at the school gate, he spots the student wearing the shoes and recognizes him as Jun-jae. In the classroom, So-Hyun is surprised to see Byung-ho with bruises on his face. At that time, he claims he fell off his bike, but So-Hyun suspects he may have been bullied. Despite her concerns, Moo-Hyeok advises her not to investigate further as it may only make things more difficult for Byung-ho. The scene switches to a young woman, Ji-yoon, as she pawns a film camera to pay off a debt. Despite the transaction, she is still in dire need of money and turns to Jun-jae for a loan of $500. In exchange, she promises to repay the debt on time, but Jun-jae makes it clear that he will reveal her secrets to her parents and others if she doesn't keep her promise. On the other hand, at the prosecutor's office, Hyun-jung struggles to handle the overwhelming workload assigned to her by her superior. Despite the added pressure, she is determined to see her dream of becoming the first female general prosecutor in South Korea come to fruition, even if it means pushing through the mental intimidation and obstacles in her path. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok is teaching a lesson on the law in a classroom when he notices that Jun-jae is not paying attention and instead focuses on his cell phone. To teach the class a lesson, he takes Jun-jae's phone and asks the class to explain why he should legally return it. Then Ki-hoon and Bom-jin rise to the challenge, impressing their classmates and instructor with their knowledge of the laws surrounding the situation. After praising Ki-hoon and Bom-jin for their knowledge of the law, Moo-Hyeok stressed the importance of focusing on their studies to prevent being taken advantage of by others. During the next break, Bom-jin reveals to Ki-hoon that Moo-Hyeok had caught Jun-jae and his friends engaging in a game of Shuttle Monster on campus yet took no action. This revelation piques Ki-hoon's curiosity, leading him to question why Moo-Hyeok didn't report the incident to the board of teachers. Then he orders Jun-jae to provoke Moo-Hyeok to uncover his true nature. Meanwhile, the school's popular student, Tae-ra, is being interviewed by a reporter about her charitable efforts to aid teenagers facing financial difficulties. Tae-ra, known for her beauty and kindness, receives praise from many for her selfless actions. She informs the reporter of an upcoming benefit concert and extends an invitation for them to attend. In class, she distributes fancy brooches to her classmates, who are thrilled with the free, high-end gifts. Tae-ra said she had purchased a collection of elegant brooches to be donated to teenagers from financially struggling families. One day, she approached a girl named Yuna, who seemed indifferent to her popularity. Yuna felt that Tae-ra was only doing this for her own benefit. Then she offered Yuna a luxurious brooch for free, but Yuna insisted on paying for it. However, she refused and suggested that Yuna repay her kindness by creating a video for the charity concert she was organizing. After school, So-Hyun followed Byung-ho, who was rushing to his part-time job at a convenience store. She saw that he was being scolded by his employer for being late. She tried to defend him, but he stopped her, knowing it would only worsen the situation. Once they were alone, Byung-ho confided to So-Hyun that he had been bullied inside and outside school. He revealed that he had considered many options to deal with the problem but ultimately realized that he would continue to be bullied throughout his life because he lacked money and power. Hearing that, So-Hyun was at a loss for words, feeling powerless to help her student. She was frustrated that she couldn't do anything to help Byung-ho and other students like Han So who were facing difficulties. That fateful night, Moo-Hyeok's phone rang with a call from Won-suk, his reliable friend and investigator. He had uncovered a crucial piece of information, the identity of the man who had been with Soo-ah in the photos that Moo-Hyeok had found. He revealed that the man was a freelance driver assigned to take Soo-ah somewhere, and, more alarmingly, the car's owner was none other than Tae-suk, general manager at the Chonmyeong Foundation. Shortly after, Moo-Hyeok quickly made his way to the parking area, where he confirmed that the car used by the driver was Tae-suk. As Moo-Hyeok grappled with the implications of this discovery, he witnessed a heated argument between Tae-suk and a female teacher, Mi-ju. At that time, Tae-suk's anger was palpable as he violently berated her, demanding to know why she had suddenly turned against him. From their conversation, Moo-Hyeok learned that Mi-ju had been manipulated by Tae-ra all along and that Soo-ah had been aware of this. As Mi-ju sat down with Tae-suk, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had to explain to him the dire situation between Soo-ah and Tae-ra. She explained to him that Soo-ah had threatened to reveal Tae-ra's dark secrets if she continued to bully her. At that moment, Mi-ju had tried to intervene and warn Tae-ra to stop her bullying ways, but unfortunately, it only escalated until Soo-ah's tragic death. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Tae-ra may have been involved in Soo-ah's death. She knew she had to end this before it got any worse. But Tae-suk had different plans. He confirmed that Han So was the one who had killed Soo-ah and warned Mi-ju not to involve Tae-ra in the murder case. He also cautioned her not to speak ill of Tae-ra, as she was a valuable VIP client. However, Mi-ju was taken aback by this revelation and couldn't help but wonder if Tae-ra was involved. As the conversation ended, Mi-ju was surprised to discover they had not been alone. Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun had both been listening in on their conversation. She had even followed Mi-ju after receiving a call from Tae-suk. As Tae-suk left, So-Hyun appeared before Mi-ju and urged her to report everything to the police. But Mi-ju refused, warning her not to get involved as it could put her in danger. The next day, when Moo-Hyeok sat in class, his mind was racing with the information he had recently received from Won-suk. A text message from his friend had led him to a freelance driver who had taken Soo-ah to an elite nightclub called El Dorado, where she had had a big fight with Tae-suk. Moo-Hyeok and Won-suk were determined to uncover the truth behind Tae-suk's involvement with Soo-ah's death and why he held Tae-ra in such high regard. Meanwhile, Young-hae had made a surprise announcement at school that Mi-ju would take over as the new French teacher. Mi-ju tried to explain that she was not proficient in French, but Young-hae accused her of lying about her resume when she applied for the job. So-Hyun, who had witnessed the exchange, tried to defend Mi-ju, but her efforts were in vain. So-Hyun scolded Moo-Hyeok for not standing up for Mi-ju, especially after he had found out the extent of Tae-suk's bullying towards her. Moo-Hyeok replied that he was trying to be realistic. As an intern, he didn't dare to go against their superior, Young-hae. He didn't want to cause any trouble at the school, including questioning her decisions. With that, Moo-Hyeok walked off to class, narrowly avoiding getting hit by a basketball thrown by Jun-jae. But things didn't go as he had hoped. Instead of returning the basketball, Moo-Hyeok threw it out the window and warned Jun-jae that he wouldn't hesitate to throw him out the window as well if he caused any more trouble. Ki-hoon was not pleased with Jun-jae's failed attempt to humiliate Moo-Hyeok. He banned Jun-jae from using the roof until he succeeded in carrying out his mission. After school, Young-hae, who had control over the test scores of the Veritas Club members, met with them for lunch. They asked her to ensure their victory in a future competition. Young-hae agreed to their request. However, the lunch was not without its own drama. Shortly after, Yeri and Ki-hoon got into an argument when she brought up his alleged stalking of a girl named Soo-ah. Then he threatened to reveal her secrets and ruin her chances of debuting as an idol if she didn't stop talking about his obsession with Soo-ah. The next day, the students of Cheonmyeong High School were in for a shock when an anonymous post appeared on their student community app, showing Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun in a compromising position. Yoon-ah, who examined the photo closely, quickly realized that it had been edited, but most of her classmates believed it to be real. Meanwhile, Won-suk, who was investigating Tae-suk, discovered that Tae-suk was planning to meet a government official at a movie theater. To his surprise, Tae-suk was actually meeting with Song-bae to discuss the Soo-ah murder case. Song-bae informed Tae-suk that the trial had been delayed until Han-soo woke up, but Tae-suk wanted the case closed as soon as possible. Song-bae then revealed that the case would be closed if the defendant died. Won-suk had also acquired several photos of Song-bae with an entertainer, who had been sent by Tae-suk to keep Song-bae company at the movies. That night, when Won-suk showed the photos to Moo-Hyeok, he was shocked to find that Song-bae was also involved with the Cheonmyeong Foundation and was working with Do-jin to ruin Moo-Hyeok's career. The scene shifts to Tae-ra playing the piano. She flawlessly practiced for an upcoming concert. Suddenly, Bom-jin enters the room, holding a bouquet of flowers and a gift in honor of her birthday. After her piano practice, Tae-ra invites Bom-jin to rewatch a movie they previously watched. She explains that she had fallen asleep during their first viewing and wanted a do-over. Then Bom-jin happily agrees, telling her that the movie was so funny that it made him laugh out loud. However, she quickly realizes that his film description contradicts her memory. She recalls waking up and finding Bom-jin absent, leading her to suspect that he may not have been truthful. Even when she knew, she decided to leave her doubts about that lie unaddressed, not wanting to risk hurting his feelings. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok is caught off guard by the arrival of So-Hyun, who has brought him the coveted files of Cheonmyeong High School students. But her visit is not solely for this purpose. She also wants to discuss the recent fight between Mi-ju and Tae-suk. However, Moo-Hyeok makes it clear that he wants no part in the conflict and finds Tae-suk's violent behavior towards Mi-ju unjustified. However, the conversation shifts when So-Hyun brings up Han-soo's involvement in the murder case of Soo-ah. Moo-Hyeok mentions that Han-soo was the suspect, but So-Hyun strongly denies it, explaining that he was once close friends with Jun-jae and Soo-ah, who was friends with Tae-ra and Yeri. So-Hyun acknowledges that Han-soo was problematic, but his behavior improved after Soo-ah transferred to Cheonmyeong High School. He became more focused on his studies and stopped getting into fights. She is confident that Han-soo is not the stalker or attacker in Soo-ah's case. Unfortunately, the conversation is abruptly interrupted by a phone call from Ha-soo. Ha-soo informs So-Hyun about the explicit photos of Moo-Hyeok that have been posted on a student community app. Moo-Hyeok, not wanting to draw attention from the other teachers, asks Ha-soo to keep it quiet and turns to So-Hyun, reassuring her that he'll find the person responsible for posting the photos. Meanwhile, Yeri receives the news at her agency that she will soon debut as an idol, as her rival has been embroiled in a scandal. Despite this, she supports her rival, who was previously kicked out of the agency after failing to debut. In reality, the scandal was engineered by her to eliminate her competition and pave the way for her debut as an idol. On the other hand, Ki-hoon visits the Song-ha law firm to investigate Soo-ah's murder case and learns from Jae-woo that the trial is postponed until Han-soo recovers from a coma. After viewing photos of Soo-ah with an older man, he asks about Han-soo's defense lawyer but is told that the lawyer was fired after causing a commotion in the courtroom. Despite this, he recognizes the lawyer's potential to uncover hidden evidence and finds the incriminating photos. At night, Moo-Hyeok encounters Yeri, who is rehearsing for her dance debut and offers his congratulations. But in a shocking turn, he declares that she will never debut or find happiness as she is responsible for uploading Soo-ah's compromising photos and spreading rumors about her. He presents evidence of her actions, but she initially denies the accusations and threatens to involve her father. However, Moo-Hyeok is aware that her father is facing issues at his company and has been transferred to India, rendering her threats meaningless. Soon after, Mr. Choi, the CEO of an agency company, arrives and asks about the situation. Moo-Hyeok, who is Yeri's homeroom teacher, informs him of her actions that could jeopardize her debut as an idol. He intends to present evidence of Yeri spreading rumors about Soo-ah and being her rival to Mr. Choi to cancel her debut. However, to Moo-Hyeok's surprise, Yeri confesses and apologizes, causing him to reconsider exposing her actions to Mr. Choi. As he departs, Moo-Hyeok warns her to shut down the application, as he knows she instructed one of her fans to create it for her own advantage. The following day, Yeri keeps her promise to Moo-Hyeok by shutting down the application as promised. Meanwhile, Jun-jae confronts Ki-hoon, confessing that he was responsible for uploading embarrassing photos of Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun. However, Moo-Hyeok's nonchalant attitude only frustrates Ki-hoon even more. Desiring to take matters into his own hands, Ki-hoon tries to attack Jun-jae, but Bong-jin arrives just in time to intervene, cautioning him to avoid rash decisions while in public view. As Ki-hoon vents his anger by gaming in the Veritas clubroom, Bong-jin surprises him with a visit. During break time, Yeri shares with Moo-Hyeok that Soo-ah is an orphan. She overheard a conversation revealing that Soo-ah was adopted by a wealthy family but was later abandoned when they moved overseas. She also speculates that Soo-ah may have a connection with Tae-suk, given that he provided scholarships for orphan students like Soo-ah and Han-soo to attend Cheonmyeong High School. At the same time, Yoona confronts So-Hyun about the bullying Tae-ra and her group subjected Soo-ah to. Previously, Yoona had tried to defend Soo-ah and report the bullying to the teachers, but she insisted on handling the situation herself. Despite Tae-ra suddenly stopping her bullying, Yeri and her group continue to torment Soo-ah. There, So-Hyun can't understand why Tae-ra would bully someone like Soo-ah, a model student known for her intelligence and kindness. Then Yeri explains that Soo-ah deserved it, as she had openly pursued Bong-jin, who was already dating Tae-ra. Yoona also informs So-Hyun that all information related to the Soo-ah murder case has been deleted, and even foreign websites that had covered the case have been blocked. However, she discovers a website featuring a video from the trial, showing Han-soo attacking his lawyer while declaring that he had stabbed Soo-ah. Yoona reveals the video to So-Hyun, who is shocked to discover that the lawyer defending Han-soo is none other than Moo-Hyeok, the new teacher at Cheonmyeong High School she has grown to know. Meanwhile, Byung-ho continues to suffer bullying at the hands of Jun-jae and his friends, both physically and mentally. There, he doesn't hesitate to beat up Byung-ho to vent his anger after Ki-hoon humiliates him in front of the other students. Exasperated by the ongoing bullying, Byung-ho decides to fight back. He and Jun-jae engage in a violent altercation in class until Byung-ho corners him and threatens him with a cutter. At the same moment, So-Hyun and Moo-Hyeok enter the class and attempt to stop Byung-ho from seeking revenge on Jun-jae for all the bullying he has endured. Shortly after, Young-hae convenes a meeting with the teachers to address the incident. She urges the homeroom teacher to invite their parents to the school and find a solution to end the violence and bullying. However, when the school fails to investigate the matter, So-Hyun takes matters into her own hands and reports the incident to the education office, hoping for a proper investigation of Cheonmyeong High School. However, Young-hae instantly rejected the idea, concerned about the potential harm it could cause to Cheonmyeong High School's reputation, one of the top high schools in South Korea. But So-Hyun stood firm, driven by a desire for justice for Byung-ho and other students who have suffered bullying. Her unwavering bravery left Mi-ju in awe, who praised her for her courage. Then So-Hyun replied, expressing her commitment to defending those who face oppression and unfair treatment. Moo-Hyeok, recuperating from the injuries sustained during the incident, later meets with Soo-hee. She informs him of Tae-suk's recent purchase of the townhouse where Soo-ah was murdered. On the other hand, Ki-hoon and Jae-woo reportedly met a few days ago to discuss the murder case. Meanwhile, Hyun-jung is aware that Tae-suk is renovating the townhouse to erase any remaining evidence from the murder investigation. Therefore, she delves deeper into her investigation, discovering Tae-suk's hidden slush fund and his plans to acquire Woonam University through the Cheonmyeong Foundation. She also assigns her assistant to investigate Congressman Young-gi, and the Song-ha law firm owner, as their sons attend Cheonmyeong High School and share the same class as Han-soo and Soo-ah. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok learns from his prison visit that Han-soo's last visitor before his attempted to hurt himself was not Jun-jae, despite the similarities of the sneakers he was wearing. Won-suk, who has been tracking Jun-jae, informs Moo-Hyeok of Jun-jae's whereabouts. Then he rushes to the address, witnessing Jun-jae threatening Ji-yoon. Shortly after, he intervenes, telling Ji-yoon to leave, and questions Jun-jae about the streetwear sneakers he is wearing. Initially, Jun-jae keeps mum about the shoe's owner, but when Moo-Hyeok threatens to inspect the music room he has been using, he finally confesses that Byung-ho is the owner. The scene shifts to Byung-ho visiting Tae-suk's office. During their talk, he suggests that Tae-suk instructed him to act against Han-soo. In return, Tae-suk promises to end the bullying Jun-jae and his friends inflict on him. Soon after, Won-suk informs Moo-Hyeok that Soo-ah once worked as a model at Tae-suk's agency. A young woman also reveals that she was a prostitute like her and had accompanied Tae-suk's client, known as Speed Dial Zero. Not long after, Moo-Hyeok receives a video call from So-hee displaying Tae-suk's meltdown at Song-ha law firm because Do-jin refuses to meet him. Then Moo-Hyeok concludes that Do-jin must be Speed Dial Zero, who was dating Soo-ah. During their conversation, Yeri calls Moo-Hyeok to inform him of a clue she found about Soo-ah's boyfriend and asks him to come to the photography club room that night. But upon entering the secret room filled with photos of Soo-ah, a fire breaks out, destroying all the evidence. Realizing that the phone call was a trap, Moo-Hyeok discovers that one of Cheonmyeong High School's students already knows his true identity as a lawyer defending Han-soo. So-hyun, who is aware of his identity, threatens to expose him in front of the teachers. Desperate to keep his cover, Moo-Hyeok pleads with So-hyun for 10 days to gather evidence proving his motives for infiltrating Cheonmyeong High School were to uncover the truth behind Soo-ah's murder case. The next day, Moo-Hyeok and the teachers are stunned by Young-hae's confession that Byung-ho was being bullied, leading to his decision to stay in Cheonmyeong High School and Jun-jae, the bully, to be expelled. Arriving at school, Byung-ho is still struggling with the mental abuse inflicted by Jun-jae's friends, who believe expulsion is unjust. However, Bom-jin defends Byung-ho in front of the entire class, leaving Ki-hoon to ponder why he would support someone like Byung-ho. During recess, Moo-Hyeok confronts Byung-ho about the expensive streetwear sneakers that Jun-jae took, but he denies ownership. Then Moo-Hyeok tries to intimidate him into confessing, but the fear in his eyes prompts him to quickly retreat. Meanwhile, in the Veritas clubroom, Bom-jin warns Ki-hoon and the others about Moo-Hyeok's investigation into Han-soo and Soo-ah. He fears Moo-Hyeok may be looking to uncover the truth behind Soo-ah's murder and urges Ki-hoon and the others to stay away from him. Despite that warning, they stubbornly leave the clubroom. Meanwhile, Tae-ra, still feeling jealous and bitter about Bom-jin's shifting attitude towards Soo-ah, throws the bracelet he gave her in anger, revealing that she had always suspected a romantic connection between him and Soo-ah. That night, So-hyun visits Han-soo at the hospital and crosses paths with Moo-Hyeok, who has also come to visit Han-soo. There, he shares with them what had intended to reveal everything to him but took his own life before he could. Moo-Hyeok also reveals that Tae-suk was the one who hired a lawyer from the Song-ha law firm to handle Soo-ah's case and that he had been instructed to find Han-soo guilty and close the case. However, Moo-Hyeok tells So-hyun that he has uncovered evidence that could prove Han-soo's innocence, resulting in his dismissal from his job and the revocation of his license as a lawyer. He also reveals the shocking truth about Tae-suk enrolling Soo-ah in Cheonmyeong High School and showering her with luxurious gifts. Hearing that, So-hyun is devastated to know that one of her students was leading a double life as a prostitute. The following day, Moo-Hyeok confronts Ki-hoon, who already knows his identity as Han-soo's lawyer. However, he remains calm and unfazed as Ki-hoon tries to intimidate him. At that time, Ki-hoon finds himself caught in a dangerous game of murder and deceit after his classmate Soo-ah is found dead. Despite the threat of being reported to the board of teachers by Moo-Hyeok, he is determined to uncover the truth about Soo-ah's death. Driven by his belief that Han-soo is not the killer, Ki-hoon secretly investigates the case. However, his obsession with Soo-ah's murder doesn't go unnoticed. His father, Do-jin, finds out about his investigation and scolds Ki-hoon for being too fixated on the case. Undeterred, he uncovers evidence that puts Tae-suk at the crime scene, leading Moo-Hyeok to ask for his help. But when he refuses to cooperate, Moo-Hyeok resorts to bullying and threatens to implicate Do-jin in Soo-ah's murder. In a twist of events, Moo-Hyeok reveals photos of Soo-ah at the trial, causing Do-jin to immediately fire him. On the other hand, Mi-ju's day takes a turn for the worst when she accidentally injures Tae-ra in class. Tae-ra's mother, Mrs. Woo, storms into the school and lies to her, blaming her for Tae-ra's injury. The situation escalates when Mrs. Woo's female bodyguard slaps Mi-ju for trying to defend herself. Then So-hyun steps in to defend her, leading to a heated argument with Mrs. Woo. Soon after, Moo-Hyeok steps in to break up the fight, but the damage is done. At that time, Mrs. Woo demands that Tae-suk fire Mi-ju, and as a show of her dissatisfaction with the school's management, she cancels her investment in Woonam University. Despite that attempts to persuade her otherwise, Mrs. Woo remains resolute and even snubs Tae-suk by not inviting him to Tae-ra's charity concert. At night, Mi-ju confesses to manipulating the grades of the VIP students, including Tae-ra, under Tae-suk's instruction. She also reveals that the charity concert is not a mere performance but a meeting of the parents of the VIP students to solidify their control in the school and ensure their children's success. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok is one step ahead at the benefit concert. He suspects Tae-suk will show up despite not being invited and instructs Won-suk to plant a bugging device on Tae-suk's suit. Arriving at the benefit concert, Tae-suk caused a stir when he confronted Mrs. Woo and Do-jin, who had backed out of their investment in Woonam University. To avoid public embarrassment, they took Tae-suk to a private room to settle their dispute. In the heated conversation that followed, they reluctantly agreed to support his acquisition of the university after he threatened to reveal the cheating practices of Tae-ra and the other VIP students. Meanwhile, Hyun-jong and a team of prosecutors arrived at the scene, intent on arresting Tae-suk for embezzlement. Shortly after, Moo-Hyeok tried to intervene, as he was still determined to uncover the truth behind Soo-ah's murder and believed Tae-suk was not involved. Despite that objections, Hyun-jong remained set on arresting Tae-suk until So-Hyun arrived and revealed that he had driven Han-soo to take his own life. Not only that, but So-Hyun had a flash drive in her hand, given to her by Mi-ju. It contained evidence that could be used against Tae-suk, enough for the prosecutor's office to make an arrest. Initially, Hyun-jong was set on capturing Tae-suk, but after learning about the flash drive, she decided to discuss the clues with So-Hyun and Moo-Hyeok. Before leaving, she requested they share information to quickly uncover the case's truth. At that time, Moo-Hyeok received help from Hyun-jong, So-Hyun, and Yoon-ah. She was willing to reach out to Byung-ho to gather information about Han-soo. Yoon-ah had attended Han-soo's trial and was aware of Moo-Hyeok's identity as his lawyer. Then So-Hyun added that Yoon-ah was the one who informed her about Tae-ra's bullying of Soo-ah and the VIP students' value engineering. Upon discovering the truth, Bom-jin promised to keep it a secret and help Yeri. During the exam, Moo-Hyeok, with Won-suk's help, used a sophisticated tool to hack the cell phones of Ki-hoon, Byung-ho, and Bom-jin. Nothing was found on Ki-hoon and Byung-ho's phones, but Won-suk discovered a photo of Soo-ah as a model on Bom-jin's phone. However, before Won-suk could finish hacking the data, Bom-jin finished the exam and requested his phone back. Shortly after, Moo-Hyeok quickly dropped all the students' phones and picked up Bom-jin's phone, pretending it was a mistake. Then Won-suk informed him that Bom-jin had installed a spy app on his phone, allowing him to hack and monitor the phones of others with similar apps. After this surprising revelation, Moo-Hyeok asked Won-suk to investigate Bom-jin's father, who was the head of the education committee. At that time, Moo-Hyeok suspects Yong-gi is crucial to Tae-suk's plans and maybe the speed dial zero that Soo-ah was forced to serve. He examines the site of her murder and discovers a path not captured by CCTV cameras that leads to the main road. Shortly after, they scour the area for any evidence the police may have missed. The next day, So-Hyun brings Byung-ho to visit Han-soo, who remains in a coma. She reveals to him that Moo-Hyeok is Han-soo's lawyer, posing as a teacher to clear his name and uncover the truth behind Soo-ah's death. When she mentions Byung-ho's previous prison visit to Han-soo, he denies knowing anything, though his expression suggests otherwise. At that moment, Byung-ho feels guilty about Han-soo's state and avoids eye contact with him. Soon after, a flashback reveals Byung-ho's earlier prison visit, where he blames Han-soo for Soo-ah's tragedy and tells him that she wouldn't have been hurt if he had never entered her life. As Byung-ho prepares to leave, he urges Han-soo to confront his actions that led to Soo-ah's pain. Despite Han-soo's pleas for information on the individual who sent Byung-ho, he remains tight-lipped. In the present, Byung-ho is filled with regret as he sobs and apologizes to Han-soo for driving him to hurt himself. Afterward, he shares his intentions to fully confess to So-Hyun. Meanwhile, Jun-jae, recently expelled from school, is confronted by two debt collectors. A scuffle ensues, with the collectors brandishing a knife. Just in time, Bom-jin arrives and scares the collectors away with a fake police call. Then he expresses his gratitude to Bom-jin for coming to his aid. However, he is taken aback when Bom-jin reveals his plans to return to Chonmyeong High School. Later that night, Ki-hoon invites his father to a luxurious hotel for dinner. There, he shares the news of winning a photography contest and hopes that Do-jin can attend and witness his victory. Soon after, Do-jin told Ki-hoon he was attending a meeting at his office, but Ki-hoon caught him in a lie when he spotted him at the hotel where Soo-ah and Tae-suk were also present. This confirmed his suspicion that his father was involved with Soo-ah, and he confronted him about it during dinner. However, Do-jin's evasive answers only fueled Ki-hoon's curiosity, leading him to wonder about the nature of his father's relationship with Soo-ah. Feeling frustrated and ignored, Ki-hoon left his father at the restaurant and walked home to clear his mind. He reminisced when he confronted Soo-ah about her pictures with Tae-suk at the hotel, revealing his love for her and offering her money to be with him instead. Despite his efforts, he struggled to shake the feeling that his father was hiding something from him. However, Soo-ah's threat to reveal Ki-hoon's stalker behavior sparked his violent outburst. Suddenly, Han-soo arrived just in time to witness the altercation and was shocked to see a photo of Soo-ah and Tae-suk together in a hotel. He tried to confront her about it, but she begged him to leave with her. On the other hand, Byung-ho was walking home when he remembered Tae-suk gave him expensive shoes and invited him to dinner. It turned out that Tae-suk had ulterior motives for his kindness, as he ordered Byung-ho to visit Han-soo in prison and deliver a message, accompanied by a photo of Soo-ah in a coma at the hospital. He promised Byung-ho protection from bullying at school to ensure his compliance. Byung-ho, realizing the truth, was on his way to meet So-hyun when Bom-jin appeared, worried about his well-being. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok, investigating Tae-suk's connection to Young-gi, remembered that Tae-suk had a planner and cell phone stored in his office's safe deposit box. He believed the planner contained a list of clients seeking sexual favors and that the cell phone was used for covert transactions to avoid detection. Then Moo-Hyeok asked Won-suk to help him infiltrate the school and steal the planner and cell phone. At the same time, Tae-suk was working at his office when a shocking figure appeared. It was Ki-hoon who blamed him for the death of Soo-ah. At that time, Ki-hoon feels mixed anger and frustration, having deeply loved her. However, Tae-suk insultingly referred to him as a stalker and revealed that his father had begged to protect his son's reputation. Enraged, he attacked Tae-suk with a baseball bat, but Tae-suk was able to fend off the attack with a golf club and knock him down. That night, Moo-Hyeok and Won-suk had intended to sneak into Tae-suk's room to steal a planner and cell phone, crucial evidence proving Young-gi's involvement with him. Instead, they were met with his lifeless body hanging from the ceiling. Instead of leaving, Moo-Hyeok continued their plan, with Won-suk attempting to open the safe while Moo-Hyeok searched the room. To their surprise, he discovered a will written by Tae-suk on the table. In a heart-wrenching letter to his father, Tae-suk confessed to his mistakes and revealed his desire to acquire Woonam University. He also requested that his body be cremated without a funeral. Not long after, Won-suk finally opened the safe, but to their disappointment, the planner and cell phone they were searching for were not there. Then Moo-Hyeok realized that Tae-suk's death was not because he hurt himself but rather a murder. In a panic, they quickly erased any evidence of their presence and fled the scene. The next day, Detective Hyun-jong arrived at the crime scene to investigate Tae-suk's death. However, Lieutenant Oh, who was in charge of the case, became suspicious when she learned that Hyun-jong was already aware of Tae-suk's death before it was made public. At that time, she was obstructing Hyun-jong's investigation, especially after discovering that Hyun-jong had not thoroughly examined the crime scene, assuming that Tae-suk had taken his own life. Determined to uncover the truth, Hyun-jong, who had been tipped off by Moo-Hyeok that Tae-suk's death may have been a murder, searching for evidence to support her theory. Meanwhile, Ki-hoon was involved in another heated argument with Yeri, escalating to the point where he intended to slap her. Soon after, Bom-jin intervened, confronting him about the secrecy surrounding Moo-Hyeok's true identity. Then Bom-jin accused him of being threatened by Moo-Hyeok, but he refused to explain. As tensions rise, Bom-jin warns his friends Ki-hoon, Yeri, and Tae-ra to stay calm and follow his lead as he sets his sights on eliminating Moo-Hyeok. Meanwhile, school administrator Yong-hae announces to the faculty that Chonmyong High School will be closed for the week, instructing everyone to remain tight-lipped about Tae-suk's death. On the other hand, a Prime Journal reporter named Ji-ho, who had previously investigated the Soo-ah murder case, senses a connection between the two incidents and convinces his boss to run a headline story. Upon arriving at the school, he tries to gather information from Lieutenant Oh but is abruptly dismissed. Annoyed, Ji-ho confronted Lieutenant Oh about the Soo-ah murder and Tae-suk's death cases, questioning the officer's handling of the investigations. Then he accused Lieutenant Oh of rushing to conclusions without thorough investigations, but she calmly brushed off the accusation, then walked away to his car. Desperate for answers, Ji-ho turned to the students leaving school. Yeri, who knew Ji-ho was a reporter, planned to use the opportunity to eliminate Moo-Hyeok by revealing information about him. But before she could speak, Bom-jin intervened, intimidating her into leaving with him and leaving Ji-ho bewildered by her sudden change in demeanor. Then Bom-jin warns Yeri to be cautious and follow his instructions. He tells her he will handle Moo-Hyeok and that she must focus on her training for her debut. Hearing that, she agrees, as long as he keeps his promise of ensuring her debut. Meanwhile, Moo-Hyeok confides in So-hyun that he discovered Bom-jin's use of a spy app on his phone. After accessing the phone, he found Soo-ah's photos, leading him to suspect that Bom-jin may have hacked into Speed Dial Zero's phone, which Tae-suk had introduced as Soo-ah's acquaintance. He believes Speed Dial Zero to be Bom-jin's father, Young-gi. However, So-hyun becomes worried about uncovering the truth behind Soo-ah's death after Tae-suk's passing. However, Moo-Hyeok refuses to give up the search for the truth. Recently, Hyun-jong informed them of the police investigation results. He believes Lieutenant Oh and her team may have been instructed to close Tae-suk's death case quickly to avoid the possibility of murder. Before leaving, Hyun-jong promised to convince Tae-suk's family to perform an autopsy for further investigation. Next, Moo-Hyeok confronts Tae-ra, who threatens to reveal his role as Han-Soo's attorney to her mother, hoping to get him fired. Undaunted, he questions her alibi on the day Soo-ah died. Then Tae-ra recalls falling asleep in the cinema and waking up without Bom-jin. However, when Bom-jin returned to his seat, she detected a charred smell coming from his clothes. At night, Hyun-jong, Moo-Hyeok, and Won-suk huddled together, determined to solve the mystery of Tae-suk's murder. They meticulously sifted through their list of suspects, crossing off names one by one until only one remained, Young-gi. They were convinced that he had the motive and power to kill Tae-suk and cover it up as a way of hurting himself. As they pieced together their theories, Young-gi was caught in the act of disposing of evidence. He was seen burning a painting and several photos that linked him to Tae-suk, along with the latter's planner and cell phone. Soon after, a flash of memory returned to Young-gi, reminding him of a fateful meeting with Tae-suk at an art gallery. He had requested Young-gi's help in passing a bill that would benefit him in acquiring Woonam University. As Moo-Hyeok investigates further, he uncovers a shocking truth. Bom-jin, the one he thought to be his ally, had hacked into Young-gi's cell phone, revealing himself to be none other than Speed Dial Zero, who was involved in an intimate relationship with Soo-ah. The next day, So-Hyun, concerned for Byung-ho, paid him a visit. To her surprise, he revealed that he had disclosed Moo-Hyeok's true identity to him. Then he explained that Bom-jin was a kind-hearted young man who had always been there for him, even encouraging him to stand up against Jun-jae's bullying. Meanwhile, Tae-ra found herself in a heated argument with Yeri. At that moment, Yeri accused her of bullying Soo-ah out of jealousy over her relationship with Bom-jin. Shortly after, she shot back, revealing that Yeri was the one who was truly jealous because Ki-hoon was deeply in love with Soo-ah. She also pointed out that Yeri had only joined Veritas because she was once a trainee in a girl group. In response to that insult, Yeri retorted that Tae-ra was naive for putting so much trust in Bom-jin. She informed Soo-ah that Bom-jin had threatened to reveal their bullying, but Tae-ra refused to believe it, convinced that he would never harm her. Then she warned Tae-ra that Bom-jin may have been deceiving her all along. As Moo-Hyeok discussed Bom-jin and Byung-ho with So-Hyun, he received a call from Ji-yoon. She requested to meet with him alone in the broadcast room, claiming to have information about Soo-ah. Once in the broadcast room, Ji-yoon set Moo-Hyeok up, falsely accusing him of attempting to sexually assault her. Then Yeri and the other students raced to the broadcast room upon hearing a scream. With the opportunity to remove Moo-Hyeok from the school by reporting him as a sex offender, Yeri declared that she would call the police. However, So-Hyun was aware that Moo-Hyeok had been falsely accused by Ji-yoon and used it as leverage against Yeri, threatening to expose her past bullying of Soo-ah. Yeri, intimidated, backed out of going to the police to clear Moo-Hyeok's name. Then he worked to convince Ji-yoon to confess the truth. There, she revealed that she was forced to comply with Jun-jae's demands because she owed him a debt. Shortly after, Won-suk informed Moo-Hyeok that the data on Bom-jin's cell phone had been retrieved. Then they discovered a text from Tae-suk to Young-gi from a burner phone, indicating Young-gi's routine visits to Soo-ah every Friday. After that, Moo-Hyeok pointed out that Soo-ah was stabbed on a Friday, the same day as Young-gi's visit. But Hyun-jong pondered why Young-gi would kill Soo-ah, despite their secret relationship. Meanwhile, Won-suk questioned Bom-jin about his father's hacked cell phone and the spying. During their conversation, Moo-Hyeok received a call from So-Hyun, who was on her way to meet with Jun-jae to resolve the issue between him and Ji-yoon. When So-Hyun finally faced Jun-jae, she confronted him with the knowledge that he had threatened Ji-yoon. However, Jun-jae was unperturbed and informed So-Hyun that Bom-jin would help him return to Chonmyeong High School. Then Jun-jae warned So-Hyun not to interfere with Bom-jin or risk facing danger. He then remembered his agreement with Bom-jin, in which Bom-jin would help him return to school and even allow the use of the school roof for the Monster Shuttle Championship, as long as he followed his orders. That night, Tae-ra invited Bom-jin to rewatch the film they had seen together when Soo-ah was murdered. Tae-ra, who had been suspicious of him, quizzed him about a scene from the film. To her surprise, he answered correctly, putting her doubts to rest and solidifying her belief that he would never lie. All this time, So-Hyun had always thought of Bom-jin as the epitome of a good student at Chonmyeong High School. Intelligent, well-behaved, and without a hint of trouble. But after learning of his hacking and spying on his father, she started to have second thoughts, especially after Ha Soo's revelation that Bom-jin had the power to manipulate and control his classmates only added to her growing suspicion that Bom-jin was not as good as he appeared to be. Shortly after, Ha Soo recalls witnessing Bom-jin and Soo-ah in a heated argument, with him insisting that Soo-ah switch schools. Initially, Ha Soo brushed it off, but after Soo-ah's death, she began to question if the argument had any relation. Meanwhile, Bong Jin confronts Young-hae with the truth about Moo-Hyeok's identity as Han Soo's attorney. There, she intends to fire Moo-Hyeok, but Bong Jin has other plans to eliminate him. As fate would have it, Bong Jin crosses paths with Moo-Hyeok outside the staff room and attempts to intimidate him with his father's power, warning Moo-Hyeok of the potential consequences. However, he remains unfazed. Later, Moo-Hyeok confronts Ki-hoon in the photography clubroom, revealing that Do-jin was not Soo-ah's romantic partner. Then Ki-hoon presses him for the identity of Soo-ah's partner, but he challenges Ki-hoon to deduce the answer himself. Shortly after, Ki-hoon realizes that the man in question is none other than Yoo Young-gi, Bong Jin's father. Then Moo-Hyeok confirms Ki-hoon's suspicion and reveals that Bong Jin has been manipulating everyone at Cheonmyeong-hae for his own purposes. He believes Bong Jin is hiding something about Soo-ah's death. After that, he urges Ki-hoon to uncover the truth by finding out what Bong Jin is hiding. Shortly after, Ki-hoon, determined to get to the bottom of Soo-ah's death, confronts Bong Jin in the Veritas club room. He brings up Moo-Hyeok's suspicions about their fathers being involved in the killings, but Bong Jin flies into a rage, vehemently denying the accusations and storming out of the room. Ki-hoon is left with the growing conviction that Bong Jin is indeed hiding something. At night, Ki-hoon, who is determined to uncover the truth about Soo-ah's death, approaches Moo-Hyeok and Hyun-jong with a lead. They meet a former conscripted policeman who was on guard at the crime scene after Soo-ah's death. The man reveals that Lieutenant Oh, the police in charge of the case, ordered him to leave the crime scene and take a break. This information solidifies Moo-Hyeok and Hyun-jong's belief that Young-gi, Bong Jin's father, bribed Lieutenant Oh to cover up the case. However, as they leave, Hyun-jong is attacked by two motorcyclists and left unconscious. Then Lieutenant Oh informs Young-gi that Hyun-jong is out of the way and Tae-suk's body has been cremated. At the hospital, Moo-Hyeok is relieved as Hyun-jong makes it through the critical period, but they must now wait for her full recovery. The next day, he realizes that Young-hae knows his true identity as he is dismissed as an incompetent teacher by her. Meanwhile, So-hyun, conducting a counseling session with Bong Jin's class, is astounded to learn how much they admire him as the perfect student. At that time, he remains untroubled as no one dares to challenge him. However, when he realizes that So-hyun is suspicious of him, Bong Jin stirs up trouble by spreading rumors that Moo-Hyeok had used Byung-ho and So-hyun for his own gain. Meanwhile, So-hyun, in a counseling session, tried to dig deeper into Bong Jin's past and confronted him about his relationship with Han Soo and Soo-ah. Then he revealed that Han Soo and Soo-ah had dated, but their relationship ended when Han Soo became obsessive and aggressive after seeing a photo of Soo-ah with another man. Later, So-hyun and Moo-Hyeok discussed the results of the counseling session with Won-suk when they learned that Lieutenant Oh's daughter had a heart condition and was sponsored by Young-gi for 7 years. The little girl finally received a heart transplant thanks to Bong Jin's mother, who runs a foundation for volunteer medical services. Inspired by this information, Moo-Hyeok suggested using the media to further their investigation into the murder of Soo-ah and Tae-suk's death. Then So-hyun suggested partnering with reporter Ji-ho, who had already been investigating Soo-ah's murder and writing about the possibility that Han Soo was not the killer. Together, they published articles about the Soo-ah murder case and Tae-suk's death. On the other hand, Ki-hoon meets Moo-Hyeok in the photography clubroom and reveals that Bong Jin was the first to show interest in Soo-ah. He explains that Tae-ra bullied Soo-ah out of jealousy as Bong Jin was more interested in her, an orphan girl. Despite being aware of Tae-ra's actions, he didn't care about Soo-ah and let her endure the suffering. As the public wasn't interested in the two cases, Moo-Hyeok devised a new plan. He suggested that they reveal information provided by Mi-ju to the media. Then So-hyun and Mi-ju approached reporter Ji-ho and shared details about the fabrication of student records and fake awards by Tae-suk, who had been extorting money from students' parents. Ji-ho agreed to report it in an internet broadcast, and Mi-ju was willing to go public, putting the truth ahead of her safety. However, Ji-ho's broadcast caused a stir, especially for Tae-ra and her mother. Then Tae-ra's and her students' records were revealed, along with all the fake awards she had claimed. At that time, she was frightened and told her mother she didn't want to go to school anymore, as she was afraid of being bullied. But Mrs. Wu was determined to keep Tae-ra in school. She argued that if Tae-ra didn't show up, her classmates would assume the news was true. To protect her, Mrs. Wu told her to stay with Bong Jin at all times and promised to handle the situation. The next day, Tae-ra was the center of attention at school as news of the fabrication of records and awards spread on the internet. As she made her way to class, she was met with stares from her classmates. Eri, who had been waiting, sought to humiliate Tae-ra in front of everyone. But Bong Jin stepped in and defended Tae-ra, warning Eri that he would reveal her dark secrets if she caused any trouble. Soon after, Moo-Hyeok received a call from Do-jin, who offered to reinstate his lawyer license if he stopped investigating Soo-ah's murder and forgot about Han Soo and Soo-ah. Then Do-jin promised to bring him back to the Song-ha law firm but warned that if Moo-Hyeok refused, he would make his life hell. Then Moo-Hyeok was told to consider the offer carefully. Meanwhile, Ji-ho returned to internet broadcasting and launched a nationwide petition to reinvestigate Soo-Ah's murder case, claiming there were irregularities. The goal of the petition was to reveal the truth behind the case. That night, Moo-Hyeok takes Tae-ra to a dimly lit street and reveals CCTV footage showing Bom-jin walking on the road a week before Soo-Ah's murder. He explains that the road is only 5 minutes away from her townhouse, making Bom-jin a potential suspect. Then Moo-Hyeok suspects that Tae-ra knows something about Bom-jin and warns her to be careful around him. Just then, Moo-Hyeok receives a call from the hospital, informing him that Han-soo has regained consciousness. He rushes to the hospital, only to find that Lieutenant Oh is already there, eager to interrogate Han-soo. However, the nurse warns Lieutenant Oh not to disturb Han-soo as he's still recovering. Despite the nurse's warning, she takes him to the roof, intending to kill him. Just in time, Bom-jin arrives on the scene and confronts Lieutenant Oh, forcing her to leave Han-soo alone. Then he tells Han-soo about Soo-Ah and Tae-suk's death, leaving him shocked and devastated. Taking advantage of Han-soo's vulnerable state, Bom-jin manipulates him to stay away from Moo-Hyeok's side. Bom-jin, who was in a bind, approached Han-soo with a proposal. He asked Han-soo to provide false testimony at the trial, claiming that he had witnessed Tae-suk leaving Soo-Ah's home on the day of her stabbing. Bom-jin convinced Han-soo that this would clear him of all charges, freeing him from the need for Moo-Hyeok's legal defense. As Moo-Hyeok finally arrived at the hospital, he began searching for Han-soo. He finally came upon Han-soo and Bom-jin on the roof and asked about the information Han-soo wanted to share before he failed to hurt himself. But he quickly kicked Moo-Hyeok out and had Bom-jin escort him back to his treatment room. When Bom-jin returned home, he was scolded by his father for coming home late. He hinted to his father that he had been visiting Han-soo, gauging his reaction. Then Young-hee warned him not to act foolishly, as his actions could poorly reflect his reputation as a congressman. The words echoed those of Soo-Ah, leading Bom-jin to realize the tension between his father and Soo-Ah. Despite the warning, he was not afraid to defy his father's wishes. The following day, the police reopened the investigation into Soo-Ah's murder after Han-soo regained consciousness. This news quickly spread, causing excitement among the public, who eagerly awaited the results of the police and prosecutors' office's renewed efforts. Meanwhile, Song-bae assigned a new prosecutor named Park to take over the case from Heon-jong, who was still recovering in the hospital. At school, Tae-ra informed Bom-jin that Moo-Hyeok had shown her CCTV footage of him near Soo-Ah's home days before her death. She told Bom-jin that she had confirmed their alibis for the day of the stabbing to Moo-Hyeok, but she assured him that she would keep this fact a secret. Back at the school, Young-hae, now filling Tae-suk's role as general manager, discovered that Moo-Hyeok had falsified his teaching certificate to secure a job at Chonmyeong High School. She promptly fired Moo-Hyeok, instructing him to leave discreetly to avoid causing a commotion. However, Moo-Hyeok refuses to be expelled from school and threatens Young-hae to expose their conversations that prove her practices of grade manipulation and falsifying student records. Meanwhile, a police officer interrogating Han-soo informs Lieutenant Oh that he confessed to Tae-suk's presence at Soo-Ah's house before entering and trying to hurt himself after Tae-suk threatened him in prison. Upon visiting Han-soo at the hospital, Moo-Hyeok is met with hostility and gets kicked out. With no information from him, Moo-Hyeok turns to Do-jin at his office and strikes a new deal. He threatens to reveal the recording of Do-jin and Tae-suk's conversation regarding Soo-Ah's murder case and demands the return of his lawyer license and reassignment to the case. At that moment, Moo-Hyeok is confident he can clear Song-ha law firm's name by proving Han-soo's innocence. After reaching an agreement with Do-jin, he seeks So-hyun's help in finding out what Bom-jin told Han-soo. At night, Moo-Hyeok retraced Bom-jin's steps on the day Soo-Ah was brutally attacked. His investigation uncovered the shocking truth that Bom-jin had no alibi. The only witness to his whereabouts was Tae-ra, who had accompanied him to the cinema. Desperate to keep his secret, Bom-jin summoned Tae-ra to the roof of a building. Instead of offering her comfort, he pushed her off the edge, punishing her for inadvertently revealing his dark secret. The moment Tae-ra's life was cut short was when Moo-Hyeok received the news of her death. Enraged, he confronted Bom-jin, demanding answers. But Bom-jin was quick to blame him for ruining his meticulously crafted plans. Then Moo-Hyeok's anger towards Bom-jin's manipulation boiled over, leading to a violent outburst that took 2 police officers to restrain him. The police informed Moo-Hyeok of Tae-ra's death, explaining that she had taken her own life by jumping from the building and even left a message for Bom-jin about her intentions. Despite this, he couldn't shake the feeling that Bom-jin was involved in Tae-ra's death, believing that he may have killed her to keep his secret safe. At that moment, Moo-Hyeok was consumed by guilt over Tae-ra's death, feeling that if he hadn't been so determined to uncover the truth behind Soo-Ah's death, she might still be alive. However, they reminded him that he had made the right choice and that bringing the killer to justice was important. The following day at school, Young-hae and the teacher council held a meeting to discuss Tae-ra's death. She declared that the school was absolved of any responsibility for the tragic event. However, So-Hyun vehemently opposed Young-hae's decision to cover up the incidents at the school, calling for transparency and accountability. To her surprise, the other teachers echoed her sentiment, weary of the constant cover-ups. Despite Young-hae's insistence that she was only following orders from the chairman, the principal stepped up and took responsibility, requesting an official investigation from the Department of Education into recent incidents at Chonmyeong High School. Meanwhile, the students in the classroom began to turn on Yeri, blaming her for Tae-ra's death after her involvement in spreading rumors about her on social media. Then Do-jin secretly met with Song-bae, who revealed that the chief prosecutor who had forced him to implicate Han-soo in Soo-ah's murder was his superior. However, Song-bae was unsure of his superior's motivations but felt compelled to follow their orders. Shortly after, Do-jin shares with Song-bae that Moo-Hyeok has taped evidence of their conversation with Tae-suk and urges him to act. Then they, along with the principal and teachers, convene a meeting. Afterward, Moo-Hyeok and So-Hyun visit Han-soo at the hospital, but he initially refuses to see Moo-Hyeok. Then So-Hyun convinces him by presenting the results of an investigation conducted by Moo-Hyeok and his friends, revealing the truth about Soo-ah's death. After reading the results, Han-soo uncovers surprising facts about Bom-jin and decides to tell Moo-Hyeok everything he knows about Soo-ah. He pleads with Moo-Hyeok to make those who exploited Soo-ah face the consequences of their actions. Han-soo said he had caught Ki-hoon trying to harass Soo-ah in the Veritas club room. At that time, Ki-hoon tells him about Tae-suk sponsoring her and shows him their photo from when they were in a hotel. Then Han-soo tries to ask Soo-ah for an explanation regarding the photo, but since she refuses to explain anything, he decides to go to her house and find out for himself. While waiting for her to arrive at the parking lot, Han-soo finds out that Soo-ah is with a man who is none other than Young-gi. The next day, Han-soo confronted Soo-ah, but Soo-ah told him to forget about her because now, she was not the person he knew at the orphanage. However, he refused to leave her because he had promised her that he would always protect her. Upon hearing that, Soo-ah finally realized that Han-soo cared about her, so she asked him to send something to the orphanage by post and told him it could also protect her. Then Moo-Hyeok assumes that Soo-ah might send important evidence if something bad happens to her. Furthermore, Han-soo reveals to Moo-Hyeok that Bom-jin ordered him to testify that he saw Tae-suk escaping through the back door. Upon learning that, Moo-Hyeok realized that Bom-jin had finally made a fatal mistake which proved that he was the one who killed Soo-ah. After getting important information from Han-soo, Moo-Hyeok and his friends plan to manipulate Bom-jin and Young-gi and reveal all their crimes. A few days later, Young-gi receives a call from Moo-Hyeok. He tells Young-gi that he has critical information about the person who killed Soo-ah. In response, Young-gi sends him a text, asking him to meet at a museum. At the museum, Moo-Hyeok exposes Bom-jin's plot to keep tabs on Young-gi through a spy app installed on his cell phone. However, Bom-jin is aware that his father is seeing Soo-ah, who is a classmate of his. Then Moo-Hyeok feigns a text message to lure him to the museum, claiming to reveal the identity of Soo-ah's killer. Meanwhile, So-Hyun and Yoon-ah go to the orphanage to pick up a package sent by Han-soo on Soo-ah's behalf. The head of the orphanage informs them that she hasn't received any packages from her for several months. Suspicious, they check with the post office and learn that undelivered packages usually remain there for several months. On the other hand, Bom-jin finally reaches the museum, where Moo-Hyeok drops a bomb on him and Young-gi. He reveals that Bom-jin is the murderer of Soo-ah. In a stunning turn of events, Moo-Hyeok also exposes Young-gi as the mastermind behind Tae-suk's murder and the attack on Hyun-jong. And with that, he vanishes from the scene. A stunned Young-gi confronts Bom-jin about his crime, to which he calmly explains his motives. He killed Soo-ah to safeguard his reputation and future prospects, fearing the backlash of being linked to a deceased schoolmate. Young-gi's anger boils over, and he slaps Bom-jin for his horrific actions. However, he remains unrepentant, as he will do anything to protect his image. In his final warning, Bom-jin advises his father to eliminate Moo-Hyeok and clean up their mess before it ruins their lives. Shortly after, Moo-Hyeok's press conference at Song-ha law firm shook the room as he accused Young-gi of being involved in Soo-ah's murder case due to an illicit relationship. The shockwaves reached new heights when party chairman, Soo-ho, who was representing Young-gi in the presidential race, arrived and vowed to conduct a comprehensive investigation. Then Young-gi quickly took the stage and vehemently denied Moo-Hyeok's allegations in his own press conference. Meanwhile, So-Hyun uncovered crucial evidence in the form of Soo-ah's diary, which she had received from Han-soo and sent to the orphanage. The diary chronicled her experiences, including her initial encounter with Tae-suk and her relationship with Young-gi. Han-soo then went public with the diary during a live television interview with Ji-ho, finally revealing the truth about Soo-ah and Young-gi's relationship. At the press conference, Han-soo defended Soo-ah's reputation, emphasizing that she was merely a victim, caught between Tae-suk and Young-gi's manipulation. However, Young-gi continued to deny all accusations in another press conference until Moo-Hyeok dropped the bombshell that Bom-jin was the killer. Han So also testified that Bom Jin had coerced him into providing false testimony about Tae-suk's presence on the day of Soo-ah's murder. Moo-Hyeok further revealed that Song-bae had accepted bribes from Tae-suk to cover up Soo-ah's murder case. Yeon-jong, now recovered, teamed up with a colleague to confront Song-bae with evidence of his corruption and abuse of power at the prosecutor's office. Back at school, Ki-hoon's anger boiled over when he learned that Bom Jin was the killer and physically attacked him. However, he proclaimed his innocence and dared anyone to produce evidence against him. Meanwhile, Young-gi pressured Lieutenant Oh to confess to fabricating evidence at Soo-ah's murder crime scene on Tae-suk's orders. Soon after, Moo-Hyeok continues his pursuit of justice but finds himself in a difficult situation when he realizes that Young-gi and Bom Jin are unlikely to be held accountable due to a lack of evidence. Despite this, he remains determined to bring the truth to light. However, Bom Jin becomes increasingly confident as he believes Moo-Hyeok cannot prove his involvement in Soo-ah's murder. This leads to a confrontation between them, where Moo-Hyeok explains that his goal is not to defeat Bom Jin but to reveal the truth about his actions. As the truth about Soo-ah's murder unravels, Young-gi tries to silence Lieutenant Oh by threatening her daughter. But Moo-Hyeok believes that the real damage has already been done and that Bom Jin's reputation will forever be tarnished as the son of a murderer and sexual offender. Shortly after, Lieutenant Oh stunned everyone when she walked into the prosecutor's office and confessed to falsifying evidence at the crime scene of Soo-ah's murder and killing Tae-suk. Hyun-jong believed Young-gi had ordered Lieutenant Oh to do so to clear himself of any charges. However, to everyone's surprise, Lieutenant Oh revealed that she acted on orders from Young-gi himself. Then Moo-Hyeok had tried to convince Lieutenant Oh to come clean instead of carrying the burden of someone else's crime for a lifetime. He was relieved when she finally revealed the truth about Young-gi's involvement in the cases. She had even recorded her conversation with Young-gi, providing crucial evidence to Prosecutor Park. Therefore, Won-suk received a tip about a security company employee who had installed hidden cameras to spy on customers. After investigating, he discovered that Tae-suk had worked with the employee and regularly sent him money. With the help of several officers from the prosecutor's office, he searched the employee's house. There he found evidence of blackmail, including a copy of the footage he had taken of Tae-suk. The following morning, Lieutenant Oh's testimony put Young-gi in a tight spot. Desperate for help, he reached out to Do-jin, pleading with him to defend him in court. Despite Young-gi's confession of dating Soo-ah and being responsible for Tae-suk's death, Do-jin refused to take on his case. Shortly after, Hyun-jong and a team of prosecutors arrived to arrest Young-gi. At school, So-hyun informed the students that she was aware of Moo-hyeok posing as a teacher to investigate Soo-ah's murder, expressing her regret for keeping it a secret. However, the students surprised her by expressing gratitude towards him for uncovering the truth about their classmate's death. A few days later, Do-jin, now a prisoner, stood before the judge and made a shocking revelation. He admitted to ordering Lieutenant Oh to tamper with evidence at the crime scene and killing Tae-suk to cover up the crime committed by Bom Jin. At the trial, Young-gi claimed that his love for his son drove him to act illegally to protect him. However, Bom Jin's surprise appearance disputed Young-gi's testimony. There, Bom Jin declared that he had an alibi for the day Soo-ah was murdered, claiming that he was at the movies with Tae-ra. But Moo-hyeok had the upper hand, presenting proof that Bom Jin had lied under oath. Through hidden camera footage obtained by Won-suk, he revealed that Bom Jin was at Soo-ah's residence just 10 minutes before Han So discovered her stabbed. The footage couldn't prove Bom Jin's guilt in her death, but it showed him to be a liar, unable to manipulate others for his own gain. As Young-gi was transported to prison, a group of inmates attacked him, while the wardens seemed to look the other way. In the evening, Bom Jin walked the streets, reflecting on the moment he confronted Soo-ah at her home about her relationship with his father. Believing Soo-ah and Tae-suk were blackmailing his dad, Bom Jin became driven to stab her. Not long after, Moo-hyeok appeared suddenly in front of Han So, holding a photo of Bom Jin captured on the CCTV camera at the building where Tae-ra had jumped to her death. He was determined to find evidence that Bom Jin was responsible for her murder. Tragically, as Bom Jin was distracted by a man who bumped into him, someone snuck up and injected something into his neck, causing him immense pain before he ultimately perished. After all this, Han So finally returned to school, where Byung-ho apologized. Despite everything that had happened, he forgave his friend and asked for help with studying. To Han So's surprise, Ki-hoon approached him and expressed regret over his involvement with Soo-ah. Then he suggested that Ki-hoon directly apologize to Soo-ah, believing it would bring her happiness. On the other hand, Yeri was forced to abandon her dream of becoming an idol when her classmates began to ostracize her due to her past bullying of Soo-ah. However, she was given a glimmer of hope when Yoon-ah reached out to her and encouraged her to work harder in school. In the meantime, Young-hae's deception was finally exposed, and she was fired for falsifying grades and student records. The drama ends with Moo-hyeok introducing himself as the school's legal consultant. The moral lesson this time is that no one is perfect, and everyone makes mistakes. It is important to acknowledge and correct our mistakes and always strive to do good for those vulnerable and oppressed.